From director Wes Anderson, Focus Features and Indian Paintbrush present The Phoenician Scheme.
It's my most important project of my lifetime.
Meet Zsa Corda.
We keep getting assassinated unsuccessfully so far.
He's the most bold, most elusive, most wanted man on the planet.
Help yourself to a hand grenade. You're very kind.
Starring Benicio del Toro, Mia Threppleton, Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, and Jeffrey Wright. The Phoenician Scheme, rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters everywhere, June 6th.
Pacifico is a Mexican lager brewed to be discovered. It's like fresh tracks on a powder day. Like that uncharted trail a stone's throw away. Like the perfect wave on a sunny day. Pacifico. Find your own way. 21 plus. Drink responsibly. Imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, inmates at a maximum security prison attempt to give back to society by stitching customized blankets for foster children. We'll talk about the Oscar-winning short documentary, The Quilters. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of The Final Curtain, Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy of novels, host of Rip Current, Strange Arrivals, and our Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hi, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
So, Kevin?
Yes.
This is Monday's program.
It is.
The defense, I believe by this point, will be going in the Karen Reed case. Mm-hmm. But more important, what's coming up on Thursday's show?
Well, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about the new podcast from Audible Originals. It's from Leon Nafok, and it's called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer.
All right. Can I just throw something out there at everyone?
We can't stop you at this point.
I went to Florida over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Fort Lauderdale. It was beautiful. The weather was perfect. It was a little humid, but it was very warm. But there was a pool and there was a gorgeous beach. And I saw 2 sharks. For reals.
2 sharks.
And so I'm not saying for sure that I would go swimming there at dusk or at dawn or at night, but I did see 2 sharks in the ocean right off the shore. But other than the shark sightings, man, what a good place to go for a quick getaway. Has anyone else been to Florida? You said you've been to Fort Lauderdale, Laura?
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time in the Pompano Beach area, which is about 15 minutes north of Fort Lauderdale, because that's where I have a timeshare. That's actually the home base. And I always like it's easy to get down there. It's not a super long flight. You can get a direct flight and poof, you're right there on the water.
And the airport is super close to the town. Yep.
Did you go to, there's a place that I love down there that I
literally went nowhere, Laura. The answer is no. Oh, we did not leave our hotel.
Oh, okay. Because well, when I'm going to and from the airport, usually when I get there in the airport, the first place I go is the 15th Street Fisheries, which is this really cool little restaurant down on a canal. And you can sit there and look at all these mega yachts and eat your peel and eat shrimp and be like, I'm on vacation.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I went to Fort Lauderdale when I was in college for spring break.
Oh,
yeah?
Really?
You do, right?
Yeah.
So a wet t-shirt contest. And those were the days when we could just be hedonistic and politically incorrect.
And gross.
And gross,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I was 19.
And ogle at women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I got absolutely nowhere with them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was there on a Memorial Day weekend and went with a getaway with my sister, and Kevin, bless his heart, edited last week's show so that I could stay an extra day. I ended up by extending a day because I was only going to go 2 nights, and then I was down there. I was like, I kind of want to stay another night. And we were staying at this lovely hotel, the Pelican Grand, and they had a lazy river in addition to their pool. And the first day we were there, I was like, this is so great. I've never been to a hotel with like an adult lazy river before, because we got there, it wasn't that crowded. And then the next day, all the families came for Memorial Day, and there went my adult lazy river. But it's a very good idea. If anyone wants to open an adult lazy river.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lazy river with 80% less urine. I highly recommend it.
Before we move on, can you just explain the story about how you got the Wi-Fi password for the hotel?
Oh, my goodness. So we're staying at this place. It's called the Pelican Grand. And my sister, who's wonderful, my sister Jen, calls downstairs the first night there and asks for the Wi-Fi password. And the lovely woman at the front desk says, okay, are you ready? And Jen goes, yes. The woman goes, okay, it's capital P as in perspicacious, lowercase e as in English, which by the way
it has a capital E, but all right.
L as in lovely, I as in incandescent. And my sister goes like, well, is this just pelican? Is that what you're trying to spell? But she used all these words that were like,
L is in linoleum.
not particularly associated with that letter. So we hung up. My sister was dying. She was like, she should have said like P as in psychology or P
All
as
weekend, this apparently was your thing.
P as in philodendron. Yeah, it was wild.
Pterodactyl.
Exactly. Anyway, that's how you get the Wi-Fi password at the Pelican Grand, which by the way, I say again, one other tale of trauma from the Pelican Grand.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple, the one night we had dinner in the nice restaurant, there was a couple there in one of the banquettes basically having sex in the restaurant. It was disgusting. They were all over each other in a way that I have never seen in public before.
And Laura, no tablecloth, so...
Nope. So when he was reaching under her skirt, everyone could see it because they were like an elevated banquette.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Speaking of our Thursday review.
Yes.
Meanwhile, back... Yeah, okay.
All right. So anyway, if you're going to go to a hotel and you're going to have drugs and then practically have sex at your restaurant banquet, choose a corner booth. That's all I got to say. Okay. So Kevin, should we talk about the thing we're going to be talking about?
Let's do it.
All right. So Kevin, should we talk about what we're talking about on this episode of the podcast?
Let's do it.
All right. Leading off.
They may or may not have a date. They may not be going home. So this is just their way of giving back.
At a maximum security prison in Licking, Missouri, a select group of inmates take part in a restorative justice program in which they make quilts for foster children. The incarcerated men work in a special sewing room, using donated material to make the intricate, customized blankets.
So which one are you going to do next?
Finish these 2 rows, and then this is the next row that gets right below this one. At this place, it's hard to tell which way it goes.
Now see, you're doing good. You see how none of your corners is pulling apart.
In this quiet setting, the men support each other as they craft quilts of surprising artistry. Several say the project is more than an activity. It provides them with an opportunity to atone for their crimes and give back to the community.
The youngest, who is severely autistic, loves his and has currently taken over the living room as his own playroom. She thanks you very much, and she appreciated it greatly. She reported never seeing them so happy. That gets me.
Academy Award winner for Best Short Documentary, The Quilters is now streaming on Netflix. The film takes us inside the South Central Correction Center. We see the Quilters take pride in their work and their contributions to children in need, all while processing their own struggle through the restorative power of art. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from The Quilters. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. So Laura, you work in the criminal legal system. I know that you deal with a lot of people who have committed crimes, some of whom deny doing so and some of them who do not. And what do you think about this idea of this kind of restorative justice model when it comes to these, let's face it, long timers in like real hard time prison?
I loved this documentary so much. You know, we hear about different programs they have in prison, like here in New Hampshire, we have the wood shop and they make license plates. What made this different is, number one, like they had to really go through a process to get in. Like you had to have like, you know, nothing on your record. And they're doing something that feels more gentle, obviously, than guys that are in like max security that have been incarcerated for decades we don't know a lot about. I mean, we do know, like Ricky says, he was murder. But, you know, you've got to have done something or be incarcerated for something pretty serious to be in that area. So what was interesting to me was I'm thinking about, some of these guys doesn't seem like they're going to be getting out. And you could find hopelessness in that, I think, when you're incarcerated. But this gives them a purpose and they've learned a skill. And you see them working together and you see them cooperating and you see a camaraderie and doing something for others in a way that really feels sincere as you watch these men making the quilts and talking about the quilts and, you know, getting letters from some of the folks that received them. So the whole concept of restorative justice, we see it a lot in like sentencing where it's like, okay, you're going to have somebody sit down and have like a face-to-face with the person that was charged with a crime in which your family member was the victim or whatever. But this is a different approach, doing something while they're incarcerated, knowing that in many cases, these guys aren't getting out, but it's giving them an outlet to kind of self-improvement.
Toby, what do you think about the quilting itself, like the activity as something to be brought into a prison setting? I mean, it's not, I think, the first thing that folks think of, but neither is raising kittens. And I guess in a lot of prisons, they're doing that. But what do you think about this activity itself, like the physicality of quilting?
Well, one of the cool things about it, as opposed to making license plates and stuff, is that it engages a lot of creativity. They end up being works of art. Like there are things that you could hang on a wall if you wanted to. Between the creativity, like the sort of planning aspect of things, sort of engaging the mind, but also sort of the Zen, like kind of the sewing stuff in which you can, I think, kind of shut off your mind a little bit and just be focused on this one very discrete task. And, some of them are listening to headphones while they do it and stuff. It just seems as though it would engage a person on a bunch of different levels, particularly I think when you're in prison and like you don't have like a huge range of stimulus just by what it is, that this kind of stimulates different aspects of your mind. And then you're also in this environment, which, I mean, you don't really get to compare it to the general population in prison, but at least one of the Chill talks about how when he's out in the general population, like he sort of swaggers around like he's a hard ass. But then when he gets in here, he gets to kind of let down and be sort of his gentle self.
This environment, it's a jungle. So I got to be a little more rough around the edges. I'm the big bad wolf down here, but I gotta be, or they eat you alive. That's just the way it is.
It does seem in a lot of ways like kind of like an ideal activity, in addition to the fact that, obviously they're doing something beneficial to people in the community.
Kevin, did you know that quilting was such a complicated thing? I mean, one of them describes Fred, I believe, describes his quilt at one point, and he's like, this one section has like 71 squares, and then I have to do that like 85 times. Like it's a lot. I
mean, I understand that it is quite, well, it can be, I think, as intricate as you want it to make. You could have just big giant squares and then that, call it a day. And there's a quilter in our town.
Yep.
And boy, you've driven them a lot of business. But one of the things that they have, like, you guys remember, I don't know if it's the quilting room where like once they bring the quilts in, do you remember the one guy had he had like
the quilting machine,
the machine that like actually he would just go around and go through the tops do all these sort of patterns with just the sewing machine when it's finishing. The place in town, they have that, but it's like it works on a computer.
Yeah, it's roboticized.
So, yeah, I'm just like, I just want to come in here and take videos of this and put them up on TikTok, and people would just watch. My theory, though, about TikTok is that if you can do one thing and videotape it, then people will watch that. Whether it's shining shoes, if you just get a close-up of that, people will watch that shit for whatever reason. And I just kind of felt like, oh, man, that does seem pretty zen. That's how I was talking to me. Whether it's just taking the T-squares and the rolling cutters, lining them up and just sketching out the different patterns, and then the actual physical activity of stitching them together in the right way. Yeah, it does seem pretty zen, and it seems better than turning out license plates or breaking big rocks down into little rocks, which is what some people that's all they want inmates to do.
Yeah.
They don't want them watching TV all day, but they also don't want them to having any fun or get any satisfaction out of doing something like making quilts for foster children. It's just, anyway, a lot goes into it, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, so one of the things I liked about this is that they never addressed the sort of gendered perception of sewing versus other kinds of art or crafts or activities they could be doing. They just never address it. You just see these men doing what is traditionally honestly, traditionally, especially in the United States, women's work, right? In colonial times and post-colonial times, like women sewed and they made the clothing and they did the quilting. And quilting is, by the way, a high art here in America. Like Ken Burns has millions of dollars worth of early American quilts in his collection. Also, new quilts can also be very, very expensive. And I do just want to give a shout out to our quilt shop in town, Kentucky Quilt Works, who made me a gorgeous quilt, commissioned quilt for me, and then we'll also make you a gorgeous commissioned quilt if you're interested.
You know, you make a great point, and Chill was the one who said that on the outside. His job was that he stitch upholstery.
He's an upholsterer.
You know, so there was like similar things, except the material was a lot hardier. And you're right, as I'm thinking about it, when you think about like sort of guys in that sewing room, how calm and serene everybody was and very kind of supportive, that kind of activity does seem to engender that kind of behavior, as opposed to perhaps taking sledgehammers and banging on rocks all day, which seems kind of aggressive, right? I don't know if that, you know, sort of the small turn and the care, like and the knowledge of sort of the nurturing thing that ultimately they're doing, if that kind of plays out in sort of how they behave among one another.
Yeah, well, quilting requires patience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. The stakes are about patience. What were you going to say, Toby?
I was just going to say that, you know, the breaking rocks thing and the working on chain gangs, like cleaning up roads and stuff. I mean, that's part of the punishment, right? And this is actually something aside from it. It's like you're in prison, but this isn't like you're punished by having to make quilts. I mean, it's something that's supposed to occupy and give you something. And I mean, I think that's the whole, I guess the rehabilitation aspect of things may like kind of come down to this. Like, it feels like there's different kind of activities, and some of them are punitive and like, we're going to make your life as fucking difficult as possible because you committed a crime. And then there's other ones where it's like, well, we're in prison, and while you're there, there's got to be some way of occupying your time with some kind of self-improvement or self-enrichment. I think it's easier to kind of run a prison when people have things to do that they find like somewhat satisfying to you know, kind of tamp down on some of the like frustration and anger that's inevitably going to come up.
Yeah.
Well, and I was just thinking about like having the ability to do something rather than just sitting around in their unit playing cards and watching TV. And like, this is such a better outlet. Like, I think of like, I remember one time I was like visiting one of my clients and they were so excited because they had been given like a job in the county jail. And their job was cleaning the floors. And so when I was like walking, did you see how shiny the floor was when you came in? I did that floor, which again, is great. They're taking pride in what they do. But I'm like, it's awesome to see something like this where it's a creative project.
It's art.
Yeah.
And math and planning. Laura, were you surprised at like the actual process of making these quilts, a little grid paper and all that stuff?
Oh my God. I was overwhelmed. I'm like, I could never make a quilt because like once they started talking and all the math that was involved, and like Fred was like giving the math rundown, and then cut, sew, iron, keep going in circles. And then like Jimmy was cutting first, but then he was getting stressed out. So at night he was waking up and he was drawing a grid with all of the calculations. And like Potter was like, it's just organized chaos.
12 rectangular blocks, 99 pieces in each one of those. And then there are 4 large just blocks of the whole quilt, and they're 99 pieces of the unit. This turned out to be over 3,500 pieces just for the front side.
I liked how they used the graphics to sort of show the building of these quilts and the design process. Because again, it's like, not only is this art, not only is this something this is something where you're learning something and you're having to actually use your brain in a way that you might not actually be doing otherwise when you're incarcerated.
Yeah, one of the things that you could be doing is listening to us on Patreon.
Oh, yes. Is that what you could be doing instead of making quilts while incarcerated?
Speaking of stitching stuff together.
This is the business section.
We're going to talk a little bit about what you can get from us. We'll give it to you at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. First of all, this is a fantastic way of supporting our podcast, keeping the 4 of us going, keeping us out of trouble, out of level 5 maximum security.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quilting circles, that's fine. But what you also get, besides that satisfaction, is you'll get exclusive content like the Crime Writers on Aftershow.
Yay!
This week, we got to congratulate Laura's son, Will, because he's about to graduate from high school, although he might not do it. Why? Not because he might not pass English. not because he might not pass history, but because he is on the precipice of flunking his true crime seminar.
Shut the F up.
Yeah. So we'll finish watching The People versus O.J. Simpson. We're going to have Will on, and we're going to grill him about this horrible thing.
Oh my, what a betrayal.
What a betrayal.
I know.
What's the opposite of a Nepo baby? A Nepno baby.
Nepno baby. Yeah.
I was like, dude, like of all the classes, seriously?
Yeah.
It's like that in fire prevention. Yeah.
Yeah, fire, which he's going to school for. But yeah, his teacher emailed me and I said, has Will shared with you what I do for work? He goes, no. I go, well, this is somewhat ironic, actually.
Somewhat.
Yes.
Somewhat, yeah. Also, we have for exclusive content, Rebecca Lavoie's Readathon, which has to do with the Karen Reed trial. We're moving towards the end. Rebecca, just, basically tell me, what do you think is different about this second trial than the first trial?
Well, it's a better watch, Kevin, for one.
It's a better watch, right?
We have a more, I'd say, competent, but also more of a character of a prosecutor. And we have a legal dream team on the defense side. And we are seeing all sorts of weird stuff coming out into the open. And it has been quite the journey, this trial.
Yeah, you're going to get an extra big scoop of Laura Bricker because she has an exclusive podcast called Leave It to Bricker. And on Leave It to Bricker, we scratched the surface on the after show. But Laura, tell us about your new take on your trip to Cocaine Island.
Your new take on the trip is going to be told to you by my traveling companions, which would be my son Will and my significant other Lance, who had to establish a safe word before they went on vacation with me because they were so afraid of who I might talk to or what I might do. So you're going to hear what it's like to go on a trip to Cocaine Island with me and some of the things we saw sort of in travelogue format.
Right.
Yeah, you know what Rebecca's safe word is?
What?
Keep going.
Oh, stop. Oh my God. There have been times in our relationship where I'm like, Jesus Christ, stop it. Stop. And Kevin's, I'm like, I don't need a safe word. Like literally stop. No.
But that was actually their safe word. Their safe word was stop.
Knock it off.
Their safe word was stop.
Very good. Very good. That one ought to work. Also, you can get Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast. And if you join at the Deep Divers level, you get to watch Toby and his guests talk about the book and get to see him make the podcast. The last book that Toby talked about was called American Fire, Love, Arson, and Life in the Vanishing Land. Toby, I hadn't had a chance to listen to it, but how did that discussion go?
It was a good discussion, but it wasn't very favorable to the book, actually.
Oh, love that kind.
Sometimes that's good. Did you really pile on, or were you just like, nah?
Well, it wasn't super mean-spirited, but I think everybody had similar critiques. And I think everybody was a little surprised. I think everybody showed up thinking, oh, I'm going to be the one person who didn't like it. Mm-hmm. And then all four of us were that way. Yeah. So it was a kind of happy bonding experience in that fashion. But this book was like a notable book for NPR and New York Times and all this stuff. And when I picked it,
lists are crap, Toby.
I was like, this is just like a no-brainer. Like, this will definitely at least be okay. But it had some significant problems, which we dive into at great depth.
I'll tell you, when I was on a million years ago for the David Grann book, I was like, I'm going to be the only one here who doesn't like David Grann. And Sarah D. Bunting totally bailed me out. It was awesome.
It's funny. We talked about David Grann yesterday, but in a more positive light.
Okay. I'm sure he's a nice person.
Yeah.
I just didn't care for that book.
Hey, be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, X, Facebook, all those places. Reach out to us. We love to have you with us. And those are all different ways that you can support us. Oh, one other thing. Go to crimewriterson.com. Sign up for our newsletter to get all sorts of exclusive stuff like behind the scenes. And you get to see photos of the pet of the week and links to the crime of the week and all sorts of good stuff. Basically, both shows all encapsulated in your inbox. That's how you can do it. And that ends the business section.
All right, Kevin, I'm going to fade that music out right now.
Every bold journey starts with a decision to go. And if you're ready, the Defender is too. This is a vehicle built for more, whether you're heading off the grid or just getting out of town for the weekend. Defender is a true icon reimagined for a new generation. Its rugged exterior is built from durable materials and tested in the toughest conditions. Inside, it's modern, functional, and refined, with smart storage and premium touches that keep you comfortable wherever the road leads. It's packed with tech like 3D surround cameras, clear sight ground and rear views, driver assist features, and an intuitive infotainment system. With 3 models, the Defender 90, 110, and 130, there's a Defender for every kind of adventure, from city streets to remote trails. This is a vehicle that, like you, is capable of great things. Explore the full Defender lineup at LandRoverUSA.com.
Hey, Kevin, who's our next sponsor?
Our next sponsor is HelloFresh.
Hola, Fresco.
Springtime is all about spending time outside with good company and good food. Now, I'll tell you, okay, Rebecca, you just remember, I'm going to relive this trauma from yesterday.
Oh, boy.
So umpiring a baseball game.
You're an umpire.
The home team was up 12-4 going into the 6th inning.
Then what happened?
Well, the other team came back after 4 pitching changes.
Yeah?
A whole bunch of walks. I thought
a murder? Was it a murder?
It was a murder.
What happened? What was the final score?
It was 20-12. Nice. And I only bring this up because I thought I was going home to dinner, and then 45 minutes later, I had to leave.
So, you were starving.
I was starving. So, like, how do you start making dinner at that point? You really can't.
So easy when you've got HelloFresh in your fridge, though.
Absolutely. Some of the great meals that you can make fast. 10 minutes it takes. The cheesy chicken and bell pepper tacos.
Nice.
That was great. But they also have ready-made meals that you can make in 3 minutes, like the sweet sesame udon with chicken and red peppers. You just heat them and eat them.
I love udon.
But that doesn't mean, like, you can't do some nice fancy stuff. Among the gourmet meals that I'm looking forward to making this week, sirloin in a mushroom sauce with caramelized onions? Oh, all right. Onion, mashed potatoes, and roasted carrots.
Nice. So feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule, even your spring umpiring schedule, and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/CWO10FM.
10FM?
CWO10FM. Do that now to get 10 free meals with a free item for life.
10FM, okay.
1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. So, Kevin.
Yes.
I hear that you wanted this thing we're reviewing to be a little more elevated.
Yeah, just like my Quince wardrobe.
Oh, yeah.
As temperatures rise, it's the perfect time to refresh your wardrobe with not just summer essentials, but versatile pieces for every season ahead. Quince pieces are timeless, lightweight, and far more elevated than anything else at this price. Okay, ladies, I'm going to talk to you man to woman.
All right.
So I know how your man likes to go to that store and buy that T-shirt for 57 cents.
Yes.
And look, there is a place for that.
Is there?
Well, like when you're changing your air filter, or maybe when you're entering a wrestling ring and you want to tear it open.
Or when you've given up.
When you've just given up. Well, that's where Quince comes in, because you can buy great things like their European linen shirts. And the dresses, of course, for the ladies.
All right.
But those shirts, for $30, when you're planning for that 4th of July picnic that you have to go to, and he's going to wear some goofy T-shirt or something like that, get him a nice pair of Quince tops, linen shirts, some really cool shorts, and he's going to feel better, and you're going to be like, hey, this is my man. And he's going to like it later when you say, yeah, this was my man.
That's my man.
Well, give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/crime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/crime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/crime.
So, Laura, let's talk about some of the men that we meet in this very short and very sweet documentary. Let's talk about Ricky. He is the kind of leader of the quilting project. He's not the program administrator, but he's an inmate who sort of has taken it upon himself to be a mentor to all the other quilters. And man, is he good at quilting, right?
Yeah. He was a really honest look inside the prison in terms of somebody who's been incarcerated most of his adult life. You know, he's been there since he's 20. He's now 64 years old, and he's come to terms with everything. He's like, I was just a damn asshole,
Most guys can't forgive themselves, so that's why they can't change, because that demon's still in them.
You got to be able to forgive yourself before you can forgive anybody else, just like you got to be able to love yourself before you love anybody,
And you have to be able to do that.
He's obviously had time to reflect on everything. He was one of the few that we actually heard, what his actual crime was. Like, we didn't hear a lot about but he said he picked up a murder rap or something, is the way he described it.
He caught a murder case.
And he caught a murder case. I was like, usually you catch a drug case. You don't really catch a murder case, but okay.
Usually cops say, I caught a murder case.
Yeah.
That's something that usually somebody who committed a murder says. But go ahead.
Well, but he was interesting because you watch him mentoring all the new quilters, and they're like, he is the go-to guy. And like, he has been doing this a long time. He's willing to open up and talk about how meaningful this is because of his mother and his grandmother who quilted and made like the patchwork clothes and everything. You know, he talked about the process he had gone through and sort of reconciling the crime that he was incarcerated for, and talking about forgiveness and how part of the forgiveness was having to forgive himself and how he came to that place. But just seeing how confident he was in that quilting, number one, I'm like, he's found a purpose. But I'm also like, the dude is like, at this point, I mean, for me, I guess personally, I feel like at some point, what is the value of holding somebody like that still incarcerated? Like, what is that costing? He's an old man now. He's been institutionalized his whole life, but he's doing something productive in there. I don't know. I thought a lot about like seeing people like that have been incarcerated for so long and have these super long sentences. And you're like, what is the argument for keeping somebody like that institutionalized?
It doesn't sound like a lot when you're hearing about it in a newspaper article or you're watching a trial or whatever. But to me, it really hit home when that one guy who'd been working with Ricky forever, because of his good behavior, was being moved to a lower level of confinement, which meant he had to leave the quilting program. I'm like, why does he have to leave? But then he's like, and then it could be 5 more years until I'm considered for parole. I'm like, okay, so there, you have to leave this thing that you love and that you're obviously great at because you're doing well. And then it could be 5 fucking years before. I mean, the American criminal justice system and the amount of time it puts people away for is insane. It's
but at level 4, they get to play with kittens.
Oh, maybe. I hope so.
I would run that program.
So, Toby, how did you feel about hearing these men talk about the length of time they've been there and how they're feeling about their younger selves now?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting part of it. At one point, I think they're talking to Ricky and maybe Fred, both of whom have been in there for decades. And they're sort of talking, oh, yeah, when we were younger, we didn't have a sense of responsibility. One of them drank a lot and the other one was doing drugs. And they were kind of looking back and just like, yeah, we fucked up at this age. I guess it was kind of heartbreaking that they could look back and recognize their mistakes and clearly had a lot of sort of wisdom and insight about them, but also no particular hope for ever getting out of prison. And again, I think it goes back to this idea where you do something when you're 19 or 20 and you never are free again for the rest of your life. And I think we're the only Western country that kind of does that. I mean, there are some places where if you do something egregious, like you may never get out of custody of some sort, but you're not getting this sort of life without parole sentence so that you show up. Rehabilitation really doesn't mean much except as far as, some satisfaction with your own life that you're going to continue out behind bars. So that's part of the tough thing about this is watching these people who are doing it. And this is actually sort of this is the end, right? This is the end goal. Like you're going to do this, but there's no place to go from here for people who are going to be there. You're just going to continue doing it as long as you can. And you either fuck up and you're not allowed to do it anymore, or maybe you just get too old to do it or whatever. But this seems sort of like an apex of sorts that there's no place to graduate to.
Yeah. So, Kevin, we do have a bit of drama in the documentary as well.
Yes.
So Fred, obviously, we'll talk about what happens to him, but there's a point at which he's making this very intricate quilt with like this hippie 60s theme, and he shows us it has like thousands of squares. And then this younger guy comes in because he's on a tight deadline. And this younger guy who's new to the program apparently also was like a prodigy because the first thing he sews is like really well, and he's helping.
Wow, you can sew straight line. Okay.
And then talk about what happens to Fred and then what happens with his quilt.
Well, yeah, I mean, Fred seemed to be doing so well, and then he gets like nicked for having a sharp of some kind in his cell.
Working with fabric in his cell.
Working with fabric, yeah, something that he's not supposed to do. I would imagine that if you went into every prison in the U.S., this is probably fairly common, but it's really bad for somebody who, like, where that came from. I'm sure the first thing they think is probably the sewing room, even if it didn't.
Yeah.
particularly for what you are doing. This is really bad. And it's like, okay, that infraction disqualifies you from this program that you've been so enjoying. So that was a sad moment. But then it also takes on like these larger stakes when Ricky goes to bring the quilt over to the quilting machine, right? And they're like, okay, we're going to start stuffing it and going like, oh, no, something is off.
And look at this. The material wasn't stretched up all the way. And when it's not, it'll leave little buckles. And like something that I can't pass. Because this is somebody who's going to keep for a long time.
So it seems like all of a sudden they're like racing against time. It's like, I don't know if they have to get this done in the next 15 minutes, but it certainly felt that way. And I'm like, oh, okay, so there are some stakes to it, even though this has been like a very quiet and thoughtful kind of documentary. And, like we said, it's the short documentary. It's like 32 minutes long. It finally found out, I was like, oh, okay, here's a little conflict as opposed to all this sort of introspective stuff. And I'm just glad that they were able to get it done. And then, when they have sort of the big reveal, when they hold the thing up, remember, you always have just kind of been seeing them working on individual squares, which are 8 inches wide or what,
Much smaller than that in some cases, yeah.
And then when they put it all together and they, you got to stand on a chair or something to hold the whole thing up, you're like, wow, that's just, if you don't feel it's a piece of art, it definitely looks like something that 100+ hours went into, and you can admire it for that.
Well, it is like a full-time job. They go in the morning. It's morning until 3:30, right? Like 5 days a week.
I thought it was till 5. I thought the hours were like super long.
It runs to like 3:30.
Yeah, but it's like a full. It's like a full, pretty much a full workday. It's like 30 hours a week.
It's like working in an actual shop, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about Chill, Laura, because they show his quilts at the end, and oh my man, are they? He makes these butterfly themed quilts, and they are gorgeous. And he is so committed to this art, right?
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. I loved watching his enthusiasm for the quilts he was making. And you could just see him light up. And he loved the butterflies. And the butterflies were his thing. And then he was talking about the best quilt he ever made. And he's like, we named it Firefly. And they show this quilt and it's beautiful. And you can just see the satisfaction that he's taking from creating something that just kind of speaks to him with these butterflies, but also just the beauty of it. I also loved when he was reading the letter from somebody that got the quilt, and he's like, golly.
Isn't it great when the little girl is like, Chill, thank you so much for my, she's like, it's like this connection between the most unlikely people in the world to be connected, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's what also, we haven't even talked about that, but the fact that these quilts are going to kids that are in the foster care system.
Yeah.
Not for nothing, but a lot of folks that end up incarcerated were in the foster care system.
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that, Toby? The fact that these people not only are making a thing and that's keeping their mind busy, but that they also seem to believe that they're making a difference, and then they get that feedback. Was that something that you paid attention to as well?
I ignored that as much as possible.
Oh, okay. as you do.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I mean, obviously you make something like that, you want someone to be able to use it, and I think that's the right outlet, right? I mean, the alternative is to sell them for $500 and give that money to the state, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or put it in their bank accounts.
Yeah. So I it's nice to get that kind of heartfelt feedback from the people who are, enjoying the fruits of your labor, right? So again, in a place where you're probably not getting a whole lot of warm fuzzies from week to week, like being able to get that stuff, shared around with your buddies who are engaged in the same activity. So there's sort of a collective kind of good feeling around that stuff. And it also sort of validates the program as a whole. So yeah, no, it's very nice and heartwarming.
I think it's interesting that the peg that their deadline is based on the kids' birthdays.
Yeah.
So these deadlines are real. They have to, and it's like there's a long list of kids, and then it looks like they'll pick a project they think they can do. And that was part of the tension of Fred's quilt, right? Was that there was so much to do and only 2 weeks left to do it.
Yeah, but he's just like, I got 10 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, how long do these things take?
Forever. They take forever.
Yeah.
So what did you think about seeing the kids with their quilts at the end, Kevin?
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I'm thinking about, okay, so this was like 32 minutes, right? It falls in under the category of a short documentary. Obviously, if it won the Academy Award, this is good, and that's what we're putting down here. But could this have also been a 90-minute documentary. And to not go into like, well, what it could have been, I certainly felt like it was good enough that it started making me think about, okay, you've raised a lot of these questions. What more might I have liked without taking away from what it is? And it seems like, like in the credits that we see some B-roll of kids opening up quilts, and I'm sure there were like other directions in which they could have traveled. They could have had like segments where, okay, now you're following someone with the blanket and they open the quilt and yada yada. Or I'm kind of thinking of like in Daughters where you cut away to young Missy who like doesn't have a quilt and she's, just sitting around at school and moving into her new foster home, and like she's eventually going to get this quilt. I mean, there are a bunch of different ways like you could have expanded this to 90 minutes and it is perfectly, a gem the way that it is. But I was like, oh yeah, we didn't like hear almost at all from like the corrections workers that are like supervising this restorative justice program. There isn't like a long deep dive about the history of all the different things that they did and what the other 4 levels did. There was stuff there to mine, but I don't feel like it got left behind. I just felt like they thought, okay, this is good enough. Sometimes we get to a place and you're like, okay, we're going to make 3 episodes out of this. Or, this might be a 30-minute story and they make it 90 minutes and it feels really stretched. It just was like, oh, wow, I think there are probably other things that we could have done there, and I think it just goes to the strength of the documentary that it stirs up more things to think about in the viewer's mind.
I actually love it that it didn't focus on the children. First of all, it's very difficult to imagine doing something around foster kids because of their privacy and so forth. But I like that it was just a moment with these men because I think that the most effective things you see about incarcerated people are the things that have nothing to do with the crimes they've committed and have nothing to do with anything that could separate you from them. Makes it more difficult, right? And here we have men together, and there's so little media about men doing like emotionally satisfying things and really communing together in a way that's not, over the top or about something sports or about whatever. Like this is just that. It's like men being together who happen to all be in this situation and really underscoring the humanity of the work they're doing, the way they feel about themselves and the way they feel about their futures. But Laura, I know you wanted to give a shout out to the guy in charge of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, I loved when he had his brief little moment, almost like a cameo. And he said, I don't know what they did. I don't care. I talk to them like they're human because that's what they are. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, amen to that. Because, as somebody that goes in and out of jails and prisons for my work all the time, that's how I approach my job. And a lot of times people are like, how can you do that? And I'm like, you know what? People are people. And whatever led them to where they are, they are still a person. And so I really appreciate when I see people that get that and that are working within that system to kind of like be an advocate.
Hey everybody, Ted Danson here to tell you about my podcast with my longtime friend and sometimes co-host Woody Harrelson. It's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, and we're back for another season. I'm so excited to be joined this season by friends like John Mulaney, David Spade, Sarah Silverman, Ed Helms, and many more. You don't want to miss it. Listen to Where Everybody Knows Your Name with me, Ted Danson, and Woody Harrelson sometimes, wherever you get your podcasts.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on boxed mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit 3 offers per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
At Designer Shoe Warehouse, we believe that shoes are an important part of, well, everything.
From first steps to first dates, from all-nighters to all-time personal bests.
From building pillow forts to building a life.
For all the big and small moments that make up your whole world, DSW is there. And we've got just the shoes. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love at brag-worthy prices at your DSW store or DSW.com.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out the short documentary, The Quilters, on Netflix. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Quilters?
Yeah, this is a big thumbs up for me. I even previewed my hand on social media before we did our taping by posting the trailer for this and telling all my Defense World friends to go watch this and, saying I would love to see something like this put in one of our 2 prisons in New Hampshire for a restorative justice project. I just thought that this was it was short. It didn't need to be long. It gave a great window into a super unique restorative justice project with these men that were quilting. I was curious if this is something that is going to be moved into other prisons, or I feel like as I was watching them unbox their fabric samples in this, I'm like, oh my God, after this is on Netflix, these people are going to be drowning in fabric donations coming into them from everybody that has watched this. This is one of those things that was short, but it gives you a lot of discussion points. And if you talk to somebody else who has watched it, you can what do you think about this issue or that issue? And it's really one of those conversation starters that shows things in a different light that, people that might see the justice system as just black and white are going to see some gray here and plenty of colors when they see these quilts. So this is a big thumbs up for me.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for The Quilters?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up as well. We were actually on the deep dive we taped last night. We were talking about books that start off as articles and then get made into books and get bloated and sort of lose focus and aren't nearly as good. This felt like a filmed article, and that was the perfect form for it. It's not really leisurely, but it doesn't feel rushed in the slightest. But there's also there's no wasted time. There's no filler. It's just this crisp story. It's told very directly. There's definitely some stuff that sort of pulls on the heartstrings a little bit, but it's not overdone in any way. It's just people talking and not even being very emotional about it, but being sort of circumspect. So anyway, yeah, I thought this was just really well made, well judged. And I think they found the perfect length for it. So yeah, big thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up for this too. I liked it. It was quiet. It was reflective. It doesn't have much of a larger message. I don't know if any great human truths are revealed, but it was a nice little package. It doesn't have the legs of something like a multi-part series like Justice USA, or maybe even a 90-minute feature like Daughters that also sort of look inside prisons, restorative justice, these kinds of things. It's just sort of a nice sort of a slice of life. And like a great quilt, pulls together disparate pieces, puts them together in an artistic way. It won an Academy Award. We'd have to be pretty ballsy to give it a thumbs down. But I definitely thought, yeah, it was great. It made me think about, were there more things that they could have done? And then to tell myself, nope, just as good as it needed to be. Like a quilt, it should just cover the subject and leave it at that. So thumbs up.
Kevin, there's plenty of Academy Award winning things that I do not like, for the record.
Crash.
Anyway, yes, like Crash, Green Book, plenty of them. So I loved this documentary. I actually think that if there are larger messages, the fact that you are watching something about incarcerated people and the fact of their incarceration is the scene and the circumstance, but it's not the end game for you. Also, by the way, you know how they have Great British Bake Off and all those things? There should be a reality show about quilting. 100%.
Prison quilting?
Just quilting. I could watch people
America's
quilt.
Best prison quilts.
I could watch people quilt all day long. It is the most zen activity to think about and watch. It's something that I could never do because maybe I could, I don't know, but I feel like I lack the patience. I'm trying to do a paint by numbers right now, and I cannot believe how long it's taking me to do it. And I'm kind of a mess at it, but I loved this. I thought it was beautiful to watch the work, beautiful to listen to the men, beautiful to watch men be together in a quiet, productive, connective way that has nothing to do with the mafia or with sports or with any of these traditionally gendered male activities. I just thought it was wonderful and beautiful, and I want to watch it again. So yeah, huge thumbs up for me for The Quilters. Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call
the crime of the week.
The crime of the week. And don't at me about pronunciation, because otherwise this bit would not work. Surprising news from the world of science. Uranus is warmer than you thought. People have been saying for years that Uranus is ice cold. The last object that went past Uranus and got a sneak peek said not much was happening there. But scientists who've been looking very closely at Uranus have spotted energy coming from it. Said one planetary expert, Uranus does have internal heat. Another declared, Uranus is not as odd as we thought it was. Uranus has long been the subject of fascination because it's so different from all of its neighbors. For one, Uranus is not tilted. Uranus spins on its side. Now, no one is saying Uranus is hot, but it's probably more welcoming to visitors than anyone believed.
Mm-hmm.
So, panel, what's another surprising fact about Uranus? Laura Bricker.
Oh, God. I was going to do like a real fact about Uranus.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because I'm having very inappropriate things coming to my mind that I'm not going to say out loud. Like, Uranus is really hairy, but I'm not saying that. Uranus was the first planet discovered with a telescope.
Ooh, very exciting. Toby Ball, what do you think is another surprising fact about Uranus?
On the opposite end of that spectrum, that and this is my 8-year-old self, the Starship Enterprise is circling it looking for Klingons.
What do you think, Kevin? What is another surprising fact about Uranus?
Nothing, but these scientists are now going to be looking for black holes.
All right. Well, I'm going to end it there. Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you on social media, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Blue Sky, at Laura Bricker, or on Instagram at the same thing.
What about you, Toby Ball? How can you be found online?
I'm at Toby Ball NH, and check out More Like Ancient Phalians if you want.
More Like Ancient Phalians. What about you, Kevin? How can you be found online?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn. That's P as in Philistine.
All right. If you want to follow me everywhere, including Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, my handle is at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere on all the social media sites, including TikTok at Crime Writers On. And please join our incredible community in our amazing Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. The main question you have to ask to be let in is, which of the four of us is your favorite? We don't judge. We just want to make sure that you know what our damn names are.
I judge
Get
a little
episodes. Get episodes.
There are fewer Lauras going in, and that's my fault.
Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at patreon.com/partnersincrime media. Our theme song was composed and performed by Tyler Gibbons, and our editor is the terrific Livy Burdett. The EP of this show is Kevin. This show is recorded in Studio C, the closet in our New Hampshire basement, where we also must return our scissors at the end of the day. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later. So, Kevin, should we talk about the thing we're going to be talking about?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Kevin, are we going to talk about what's going on Thursday's show?
We did that.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We can talk about it again, though.
Sorry, I missed it. All right. So, Kevin, should we talk about the thing we're going to be talking about on this podcast?
No, I want to talk more about Thursday's show.
In Crime Media. Hey everybody, Ted Danson here to tell you about my podcast with my longtime friend and sometimes co-host Woody Harrelson. It's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name, and we're back for another season. I'm so excited to be joined this season by friends like John Mulaney, David Spade, Sarah Silverman, Ed Helms, and many more. You don't want to miss it. Listen to Where Everybody Knows Your Name with me, Ted Danson, and Woody Harrelson sometimes, wherever you get your podcasts.
At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off, subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
Want to pull off the season's freshest trends? You just need the right shoes. That's where Designer Shoe Warehouse comes in. Loving wide-leg jeans? Pair them with sleek, low-profile sneakers. Obsessed with the sheer trend? Try it with mesh flats. Feeling boho? Comfy sandals nail the whole free-spirited thing. Find on-trend shoes from the brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at DSW.